All right. Hey, friends, what's happening? This is Andy Irvine coming to you from here in Germany at Sadowsky, and I'm with my friend Lars Lehmann.
Hi, guys.
And we're going to have a little discussion and talk about studio work and session work. We've both been playing bass for several decades, many decades, I guess, and we have some similar experiences and also some different ones. So let's just jump into it. When it comes to the studio gigs that you do, tell me about like some of your gear choices or some of the things that you always bring to the studio so that you're prepared.
Yeah. So let me just start out by saying that obviously studio work has changed quite a bit over the past years. Back in the 90s, you would go into a studio, they would ring you up and you would go to see them and record your stuff there. Nowadays, most of that stuff is being done at home. You know, I have my little home studio under the rooftop, which isn't too bad because I have a beautiful, nice little setup consisting of my DAW. You know, I'm using Pro Tools. I have a very nice tube bass preamp from Luxembourg. It's called goldmine. Beautiful piece of gear. Plus, I'm always using like the usual LA 2A compressors, 1176. Obviously, there might be a Neve 1073, stuff like that. I try to use high-class cables as well. And then last but definitely not least, my basses, which happen to be Sadowsky basses most of the time, really. I mean, I have a couple old basses from this or this brand that I might bring to a session, or somebody is going to ask me to use those specific sounds. But, you know, man, these basses are doing such a terrific job in almost all of my studio gigs. Just did a cover version of this one Nightwish song. I think it's called Noise. And I played my Red JJ Sadowsky bass with a pick, and the sound is like dun, 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 dun. It's not hard to play at all, you know. All you have to concentrate on is the consistency. But the sound is so good, you know, with a little bit of drive, because usually I will use like at least 2 channels of bass, you know, one for the clean signal, and then also a little bit of drive on the second channel, and that sound, it blows your mind. Literally. So good. What about you? What are you using?
Well, I would like to mention the pick. You know, I use the pick a lot in the studio.
Yeah.
And it just goes to tape so good.
Yeah.
And the way that it weaves into the fabric of the mix easily, and the way that it kind of like contributes to the rhythm track, the kind of
the
with
text
with
the
the drums.
Yeah.
And if you get it really locked in, especially with a simple part,
Yeah.
gong, 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 you know, eighth notes or something like
Absolutely.
that, the pick is definitely happening.
Do you actually have a favorite way of holding your pick? Like, will you play with an angle so that you can get, you know, that amount of scratch, like before the note actually rings?
I know what you mean. Yeah, you can kind of angle the pick and get it and get the more of the edge of it.
Yeah.
I typically just leave a little bit of the. I don't have. Well, here's one right here.
Yeah.
I typically just leave a little bit sticking out like that.
Yeah, right.
I don't have it like this with a whole bunch of pick sticking out.
Yeah.
So it's just. I don't know if anybody can even see this, but anyways, I just have a little bit of the pick sticking out of the end, and I'm kind of doing alternating, almost strumming.
Yeah. Right.
And whether I'm playing it or not, whether I'm audibly sounding it or not, I'm hearing a 16th note pulse at all times. So if I'm just going boom, 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 I'm hearing chicka chicka boom, chicka boom, chicka boom, chicka boom. So I have a 16th note body clock going with the pick, and sometimes I'm actually executing those 16th notes with strumming or dead notes. Or
we call that the micro time. Is that a word in the US?
Micro time.
The micro time.
We call it subdivision. I guess.
Subdivisions. Yeah.
Or a body clock subdivision.
Yes. Yeah.
Same difference. So yeah, I mean, I incidentally, I use the same brand pick as you. I just noticed you use the gray nylon Dunlop picks. Yeah. These are the ones I use. Yeah. Although mine is a 6.0 and yours is a 7.3.
Yeah.
I like a little flexy bounciness to it.
Yeah, me too.
I don't like the super heavy ones
though. What about the rest of your setup?
It depends on the music, you know, what's going to best complement the music. So like if I'm doing like an Americana, a rootsy kind of a wholesome Americana thing that maybe is in the vein of bluegrass or country music or something like that, I typically will play one of my instruments with flat wound strings on it. And a lot of times I'll play with the pick, but not always.
Flat wounds with pick? Yeah.
Yeah, I love flat wounds with the pick.
Yeah.
That's my, in the studio, that's my jam. Oftentimes, it depending on if it needs a really woody kind of wholesomeness to almost mimic the upright bass, in a way, I'll play like a semi-hollow body. I have a few instruments that have semi-hollow body.
Yeah.
And now, if I'm playing like straight up rock, and you know, I want something like a Sadowsky. I want something a solid body, 4 or 5 string, you know, and I want that deep rock tone. And then sometimes, you know, different things arise. You know, not very often, but occasionally, you know, fretless. The way that I record it is kind of probably more interesting than what instruments I play, because I go direct and I don't usually use an amplifier that's mic'd.
Right.
Maybe it's like what you were saying, like times have changed. At the studio that I work at, they have a Neve desk, and I do work at a studio. I don't work from home.
Really?
But I'm lucky because there happens to be a studio in the town where I live.
Okay.
And
so you never record at home?
I don't.
Okay.
I never got into it. I don't have the patience for it.
Okay.
I don't have the technical patience for it. And you know what's funny is I have Pro Tools.
Yeah.
And I have an interface. And I have a set of really nice studio monitors, but I never use any of it.
Yeah.
But anyway, at the studio, I like working with an engineer. And they have a Neve desk. So what I'll use in my chain is I have this Ampeg PF50T, which is a tube head, and it has a transformer DI built into it, and the head can be used without a load, meaning it doesn't need to be plugged into a speaker. Now, occasionally I will bring the flip top 15 speaker and will mic it, but sometimes I just bring the head. And bring it right in the control room, and go in through it, and then in through the compressors, and into the strip of the Neve desk. And it's very simple, really. And there's
but yet so good sounding, right? I
it's
mean,
very natural sounding. It's
will sound amazing straight away.
And if we need it to be like a little bit more hairy and a little bit more saturated, we can just slam the channel. Slam the meters on the channel a little bit, and you get it to just like break up in a saturated kind of a beautifully musical saturated way, and you can excite harmonic content that way. You can do so much just on the strip of the Neve desk, on the channel strip of the Neve desk. I tend to do things very simple like that. I've never really, I've been lucky because I've never I have kind of like one sort of sound that comes from my hands, and it kind of works, meaning I don't really have people say, hey, you know, can you turn the treble up on the bass, or can you do this? Or they're not like barking orders to me about how the bass sound could be better. I've just been lucky, I guess. I don't know. Or I have good control of my dynamics in my hands. And so we find a way to make what I lay down as the source good. And then you can do anything you want to it. You can do whatever needs to be done to it in post, meaning if you have to go back through some more compression, or you have to go back through some parametric EQ and really dial in or out a certain frequency that might be jumping out too much, or is hiding too much. And I'll use 2 lines like you do. And through the other line, I might go through my Sadowsky preamp. I have a Sadowsky stomp pedal preamp with the DI.
Right.
And that thing is great.
And we have a demo on that out on our channel.
It's fantastic in the studio because it's dead quiet.
Unit.
It's dead quiet. And that's kind of like the name of the game in the studio. You can't bring in noisy stuff. It will get vetoed immediately. Unless like you're a guitar player and dirtiness and noisiness is part of the aesthetic of the sound of the music. But with bass, they want quiet. They want not noisy, not hissy, you know, they don't want any of that kind of stuff. So that Sadowsky kind of preamp acts as like the real clean, pristine, active side of things. And the Ampeg with the transformer DI acts as the organic, warm channel.
Absolutely.
And then you blend the two.
Yeah.
And then the track tells you what you need more of, because you could go into it thinking, well, we'll use mostly the organic one and just a little bit of the Sadowsky for clarity and to make it cut through. And then when you start listening to the mix, it's like, turn the Sadowsky up and turn that one down. It's the opposite of what you thought. The track dictates to you what it needs. You know what I mean? What is sitting better and what's not. By having two sources, that expands the possibilities. And that's pretty much what I do. And then if I'm playing upright, they just mic the upright. You know, they mic the fingerboard and they mic the F hole.
I'm curious about that Sadowsky pedal. Like, how do you use that? Because obviously it doesn't make much sense with an active bass, right? So will you use that on passive basses exclusively? Or
yeah, you know, I use it for, like, I have a Beatle bass, which is like a violin bass that has flat wound strings on it. And it has a fantastic sound. And I don't use an extreme amount of the active EQ on the preamp pedal, but I just, it like a little bit goes a long way, meaning, you know, 20 or 30% of the bass and just a little bit of that treble. It kind of takes that old-fashioned bass and gives it just a little bit more zing and a little bit more round, robust, you know, booty. It does the same thing for like a P bass. If it's a P bass track that's very much is asking for a P bass, it doesn't take away the sound of the P bass and replace it with something else. It just takes what's already there and makes it a little bit more fat on the bottom end and makes the high end and the upper mids, because it's two bands, but the high is actually affecting the highs and the high mids. Those are kind of like the applications that I use it for.
Okay. Do you like to play the songs as a whole, or do you like to go to record part by part?
I'm a stickler for playing it from the beginning to the end.
Really?
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, though. I'm not doing studio work all the time, not like you are. I do it occasionally. And usually I have preparation, and there's preparing that goes into getting ready to go do this work, whatever it may be. Now, back in the 90s, when I was doing studio work all the time, it was very spontaneous. But these days, if I do an album project, it's like a project that's in the works for months at a time, and it's being assembled piece by piece with a group of 3 songs and then another group of 3 songs. And we have time to sit with the music and do some preparation on it. So I kind of have an idea what we're going to do before we even go there.
Right.
And I like to memorize. I don't like to be looking at paper when I'm in the studio, and especially with my own music. I'm pretty excited, or I don't know if that's a word. I'm pretty like proud of myself, let's say, that I did an album called The Way I Like It, which is a bona fide solo bass album. There's only one other musician on it, and that is Goomby Ortiz, who's Al Di Meola's percussionist. So it's just me and him. And every track is recorded from beginning to end with no overdubs.
That's so cool.
Every track on the album. And it's like solo bass stuff. And I'm playing a 12-string bass with octave strings. So I had to really, really practice to get to where I could play these pieces of music from the beginning to the end. And it ebbs and it flows. And there's little errors that are micro errors. And there's little places where I'm getting fatigued and I have to catch up. But when you listen to it, it's like, yes, that sounds like a live thing. Doing the comping and the Swiss cheese kind of, you know, way of putting things together is a way that's done. Like in electronic music, I think it works fine. I've done some electronic music albums, you know, that's like drum and bass, and I think that, you know, snapping it onto the grid, you know, putting it on the Pro Tools grid where everything's gridded, and then just flying things around, or even making something backwards, or just doing, you know, it's part of the creative process. I think like in organic rock and roll music and soul music and rhythm and blues and stuff like that, it sounds good when you can get the whole take. What about you?
Don't get me wrong, I like to play a song as a whole, but you know, the thing with me is these days I get a lot of requests from pretty much all over the world for progressive rock and stuff like that. And some of that stuff is so difficult to learn. And I simply don't have the time, really. And that's why I do part A, part 2. And sometimes if I have like, you know, stuff like that, I will record like very small chunks of music, and then sort of like, glue them together, because it's just not possible. To learn one of these songs by heart might take me a couple of days, and I simply don't have the time. But that said, in the end, what I found is that all of my bass tracks usually sound very organic. Does that make sense? And very natural. There haven't been any complaints so far.
Well, if I get a call for a progressive rock record, I'll say, I recommend that you call Lars Lehmann. Because there's no way I would have time for that. There's definitely no way.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, we put a little bit of time into making things cool with the band, but then when you're playing it live with the band and it's your music, you kind of own it a little bit more. Yeah. But like doing like this guitar shredder stuff and those kind of albums, I've been asked to do some of that stuff in the past, and it's just like, it's not really my bag. That's one of the things that's maybe important. Is there some things that you just pass on? There certainly is for me, where you're like, I'm not the right guy for this. Or do you feel like you can pretty much tackle anything?
I'm not going to say I can tackle anything, but, usually I'd say I will at least try to put my bass playing hands on maybe 99% of what I'm asked to do.
Yeah. It's good to be that versatile like that.
Yeah.
Especially with that technical stuff, that progressive rock.
And for some
prog.
reason, once you've made a reputation in a certain scene, and, it just keeps growing, and I really enjoy that. It's great work.
One thing I find is like music always sounds harder than it is. Meaning when you first listen to any of these riffs or whatever you're talking about, the first time you hear it, it sounds like, oh, that sounds hard. Like for me, listening is my biggest tool for learning. Yeah. Like if I have to learn a song to go in and record in the studio, I'll listen to the demo that the singer-songwriter, I'll listen to it like 40 times without the bass.
Really? You do that?
Yeah, without the bass at all.
40 times?
Sure.
Wow.
And I get it to where I can anticipate the song form, and I can anticipate what the melody and everything like that. And I absolutely kind of have my head wrapped around the song. Then I pick up the bass, and it's almost as if the bass, like to learn the notes that I need to be playing and stuff like that, it's almost as if the notes just fall right under my fingers, because I'm a repetitive listener. Learn by repetitive listening. Some people are like, they want to see it on paper and they want to take one measure and like look at that specific measure and then learn that measure and then learn the next one and put it together like that. There's so many different ways, and none of them are more right or wrong than the other. But for me, it's listening. If I have that luxury to listen, that also helps me to not need charts and stuff when I'm playing, not need the chart, you know what I mean? Not be married to the paper. It enables me to just kind of play with my eyes closed and just groove it,
you know what's coming. But listening, that's a very important part for me as well. Like if I'm to play an odd meter groove, I will usually not count. I will avoid counting at any time and just try to remember the melodic line that's being played, or the riff, or whatever you want to call it. I think for me that makes a lot more sense, because I really don't like to count that much while playing. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Yeah, well, it gets old after about 4 measures. I mean, it's fatiguing just to.
Oh yeah.
If you make it groove. That's kind of like my thing. Is like if I can make it groove, it doesn't matter what it is technically, as long as it's grooving. I don't have to be able to like dictate it or explain it or whatever. If I can play it, if I can really feel that groove. One of the other things that I found is really important, and it kind of goes back to another video we were talking about, like music theory and the things we learned in music school, is like in the studio environment, being able to speak in musical language to the other musicians.
Oh, yeah.
It speeds things up. It's like, because when you're in the studio, it's kind of like this time is money kind of a thing, you know what I mean? And it's if you can explain something to someone, this is a C7 chord, and they know what a C7 chord is, and they, you know what I mean? If you just, like, I play by ear, I don't know the notes, or you know what I mean? That's kind of can take longer because you have to
That's
show
where
them.
it gets tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas if they can say, you know, on the third beat of this measure, it's really important to play this note because it really helps to sell that minor chord. When you can discuss things with the other musicians in a language that's universal to traditional music theory, it makes putting things together really quick.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I've done double tracking. Have you ever done double tracking where you play two basses on one track?
I never really did that.
Oh, that's a cool thing to do. There's this Nashville thing where, you know, they call it tic-tac.
Yes, the tic-tac bass. Yeah.
And I kind of learned that concept, but then I just applied it to my own stuff. And like I might play a 16th note groove, you know, with my fingers. And it's, let's just say it sounds like something Rocco Prestillo would play, but then I'll play it the exact same thing with the pick. And it might be something that we say Bobby Vega would play, but I play the exact same part with the pick and then blend them together. And it sounds really cool.
Wow. So you have the attack from the pick playing and then the warm from the fingers.
You have to be really even.
You
have to be really
Sounds
even.
like a lot of effort.
It's not as hard as you think,
right?
Especially if it's like a ostinato type of thing. Now, if you're just bubbling all over the place and improvising and doing all this kind of random going all over the place, it would be very hard because you couldn't copy it exactly. But if it's just something like very repetitive and very ostinato-ish, well, it's easy to do it in that context. So give that a try sometime. You might really dig it.
Good.
And the other thing I do, I mean, while we're talking about this, just like I do something called slap matching, and I think I've seen you doing this in a video. But
slap matching?
Well, I'll do boom, 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 and I'll play it with my fingers. Then I'll try and do I'll try to copy it with my fingers, and then I'll do it with the pick. So I'm trying to do the same part and make it groove the same way with three different right hand techniques. And I practice like that all the time, so that I'm able to like do basically in a perfect world, I'd like to be able to do anything that I can do
in any given style,
in any given technique. And it's a great way to practice. It's fun when you put it, because it becomes under a microscope. In the studio environment, everything is under the microscope in terms of the slightest derivation from the beat, especially now with Pro Tools, because you can see it. When you're on the grid like that, you know, you can cheat and you can move things, which sometimes is the easiest way. You know what I mean? Like, it's like the whole track is great, but like there's this one place where somebody was a little bit early or somebody was a little bit late, and it's like a big downbeat or something. You can just kind of
fix it in the mix.
You can bring everyone together.
Well, guys, there you have it. That was our little chat on studio work as a bass player. That's it from me, Lars. That's it from Andy. We hope to see you next time. Oh, by the way, we have tons of new material coming out every week. Plus, if you liked what you saw and heard, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. And you may also hit the bell for notifications on new video content. Hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.
Peace.